Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a fascinating and absolutely vital topic, the management of maritime cultural diversity. Now, when we think about global shipping, we usually picture those massive cargo vessels, international trade routes, complex logistics, all of that. But the real engine of the maritime industry, it's the human crew. And as we're going to see from the source material today, cross-cultural training isn't just some nice-to-have HR initiative. It's a critically important safety and performance tool for global maritime crews. Let's get started.
I want you to picture something for a second. Think about your workplace. Now imagine that at the end of your shift, you don't commute home. You eat, sleep, and spend literally all your downtime in that exact same building. Okay, now add one more layer. Almost every single person in that building with you comes from a completely different country, with different customs, traditions, and native languages. What happens in that unique high-stakes scenario when a simple hand gesture means great job to one sailor, but is deeply offensive to another? Or when the standard way of speaking up to a boss totally contradicts a crew member's deep-rooted respect for hierarchy?
Okay, let's dive into this. A ship is a unique, dual environment. It's this closed ecosystem where diverse people work and live together 24/7. This isn't a typical 9 to 5 where you can just step away from a cultural clash at the end of the day. In the dynamic environment of a ship, cultural differences are instantly magnified. The mess hall, the sleeping quarters, the bridge, these are all shared spaces. When you're navigating daily life in a multinational onboard environment, the way someone communicates, makes decisions, or even handles the stress of differing religious or dietary practices during a meal, well, it can either build incredible camaraderie or create immediate friction. And that friction has very real-world consequences. The severe risks of miscommunication become glaringly obvious when you look at the safety hazards. Cultural misunderstandings here aren't just awkward water cooler moments. They're actually the root cause of life-threatening safety and security risks. I mean, communication barriers can lead to misinterpreted orders during a storm, potentially hazardous conditions on deck, and massive maritime security vulnerabilities. Beyond the physical dangers, these clashes severely damage crew morale and weaken support for leadership. And a divided crew is, quite frankly, a dangerous crew.
So, how do we fix this? Well, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We've just covered the unique maritime scenario. Next, we're going to establish some key cultural terms, explore the benefits of diversity, compare trained versus untrained teams, and finally, walk away with practical cross-cultural skills. Let's keep moving.
To truly understand the solutions here, our first section covers key cultural terms to establish a shared language. We're going to do a quick rapid-fire sequence of the foundational concepts from our source materials so we know exactly what we're measuring.
First up is our baseline, cultural diversity. The source simply defines this as the presence of different groups of people with different races, religions, languages, and traditions in the same place. That's it. It's a statement of fact. For modern global shipping companies, employing individuals from various backgrounds is just the everyday reality of the business.
Now, what's really interesting is when we contrast this with multicultural diversity competency. This is entirely different from just having diversity. Competency is an active skill. It's the ability to actually show respect and understanding, to communicate effectively, and to successfully work with people from those different backgrounds. Basically, diversity is what you have, competency is what you do with it. So, how do you bridge the gap between simply having diverse people and actually being competent at working together? The answer is cross-cultural training. This is the definitive active catalyst. As defined by the source, it's the specific training that addresses how national culture affects working styles, decision-making, communication, and perceptions of leadership. This is the exact mechanism that turns raw diversity into measurable, high-performing competency. Which brings us to Section 2, the benefits of diversity, moving from risk to reward. You see, we really need to stop looking at diversity purely as a risk to be managed and start seeing it for what it truly is. Look at the massive upside here. Embracing cultural diversity isn't just about avoiding accidents. It's a literal performance multiplier. According to the source, highly competent multicultural teams actually enhance a company's economic and social performance in our globalized world. It improves a crew's ability to adapt to sudden organizational changes. And beautifully, it helps people become more creative, driving a much higher potential for overall innovation. Different perspectives, when managed well, just solve complex problems faster. Let's move right along to Section 3, trained versus untrained teams, and the undeniable impact of education. Let's see how this builds into real-world performance outcomes.
The source material provides a brilliant direct comparison between multicultural teams that have received cross-cultural training and those that haven't. Take a look at conflict and trust. Without training, a diverse crew basically sits on a powder keg of high conflict potential and underlying distrust. You've got individuals constantly stepping on each other's cultural toes without even realizing it. But with training, the transformation is dramatic. You see much better conflict management, significantly less friction, and a really high degree of flexibility and mutual trust. It shifts the entire environment from tense and defensive to open and reliable.
And this brilliantly illustrates how it impacts the work itself. Without training, communication is plagued by misunderstandings and misinterpretations, making teamwork incredibly inefficient. But with specialized training, crews develop much better interpretation skills. Because those communication barriers are broken down, you foster a high acceptance of different ideas, which directly unlocks that creative problem-solving we talked about just a minute ago. To summarize the data here, it's a complete shift from isolation to unity. Untrained teams suffer from ethnocentrism, which is basically judging others solely by the standards of your own culture, and that results in poor team connectivity. Trained teams, on the other hand, exhibit increased tolerance, genuine appreciation for the value of diversity, and far greater team integration. It's the ultimate transformation from a potentially toxic environment into a unified, high-performing team.
So all of this theory sounds great, right? But how is it actually applied? In our fourth and final section, Practical Cross-Cultural Skills, we're building the ultimate toolkit for resolving conflicts and operating smoothly on board. So the crucial point is figuring out how we build this toolkit. Well, it starts with a practical, proven checklist of topics that every successful maritime training program must hit to be effective. Let's break down exactly what needs to be implemented to resolve conflicts and boost safety. According to the research, you must actively deploy conflict management strategies specifically tailored for multicultural teams. You need to utilize efficient communication strategies that cut straight through language barriers to ensure absolute clarity during operations. Leaders have to be trained on how to build and unite diverse groups. Crucially, and this goes back to our earlier scenario, right? You have to set clear guidelines for navigating daily life in a multinational onboard environment. That means figuring out how to share meals, respect quiet hours, and honor differing social customs in extremely tight quarters while maintaining cultural awareness. If you want to resolve conflicts effectively and directly prevent those severe safety risks we mentioned, you have to master these essential tips. First, actively develop fair and objective attitudes toward people from different cultures. Second, build self-cultural awareness. This means you actually have to understand your own biases so you can better handle team dynamics. Third, recognize and adapt to linguistic differences instead of letting them frustrate you. Speak clearly, confirm understanding, be patient. And fourth, recognize and effectively manage the unique stress that comes from functioning in a 24/7 multicultural situation. Mastering these steps is exactly what prevents a minor misunderstanding from turning into a maritime emergency. Which leaves us with this final thought. The data is crystal clear. Throwing diverse people onto a ship and just hoping for the best is a guaranteed recipe for disaster, miscommunication, and compromised safety. But giving them the tools to actually understand each other, that unlocks incredible resilience, innovation, and performance. So whether you're out on the ocean or working in a diverse office onshore, you really have to ask yourself, is your team navigating blind or are you sailing with true cultural competence? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time as we continue to break down the most fascinating insights shaping our world.